Hello and welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the Employment Committee. Please note that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded. For clarity, voting is only permitted by members who are present in the room. Any member joining the meeting remotely is able to participate in the debate but not able to vote. Other than that, the usual rules apply. Next item, apologies. Are there any apologies?
None received, Chair.
I can see the members of the committee who are in attendance and their names will be recorded in the minutes. Please can the clerk confirm if any members are joining remotely and if those members could confirm their attendance when the clerk calls your name.
So I can see Councillor Watts,
Hi.
Councillor Forster
Hello.
and Councillor Thompson.
Good evening.
Hello everybody. The full text for declarations of interest is set out on the agenda. If any member has a disclosable pecuniary interest or an affected interest to declare, please indicate in the meetings chat and I will come to you in turn. Thank you. There are no declarations, but may I remind everyone that you can make a declaration at any time should it occur to you at a later point. Anyone declaring a disclosable pecuniary interest will need to leave the meeting when we get to the relevant item. Agenda item 3, can we please approve the minutes from the Employment Committee on the 5th of July, please?
Chair, Councillor Gilby, I'm happy to second.
Are all members in favour of approving the minutes? Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is consideration of any urgent items. Are there any?
No, non-notified, Chair.
Agenda item 5. I'll provide a quick verbal update from the local joint committee meeting we just had. So there were a couple of comments on the workforce monitoring report, which we will be discussing today. Firstly, on what work is being done to review the data on percentages of BAME leavers across the workforce. And secondly, there was a suggestion that the graph of the document presented will be presented slightly differently, and that's going to be looked into. And on a separate matter, an ongoing incident was raised in terms of a council primary school. The trade unions expressed a concern about the impact on staff of this ongoing incident and have urged the council to take legal action. And have requested a meeting with the school, so that is in hand. Yeah, Councillor Allen.
Just to clarify, the graph that they're referring to that needed changing was on page 46.
Thank you.
And basically, the years were it was in reverse year order, so they wanted it incremental rather than going down.
Quite right. Thank you. So that was an update on the meeting we had this afternoon. Agenda item 6, note of the minutes of the local joint committee from the 5th of July. Okay, can I have a seconder for those, please?
I'm happy to second the local joint committee meeting minutes from that meeting.
Thank you. And can we put that to the vote, please? Thank you. Agenda item number 7, the core of this meeting. So we will review and agree the workforce monitoring report for publishing. And Paul Young is going to present the item.
Thank you. As identified in the cover report, there is a requirement for the Council to publish an annual equality report by the end of March 2024. The report is actually based on information for the workforce up until March 2023. There's an awful lot of data in this report, so if there are any comments or questions, please forgive me if I can't answer all of them immediately, but I will aim to do so as well as I reasonably can. I just wanted to give a quick overview because the data is showing in the report itself, but just in terms of some of...
Sorry, keep that one's there.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Just in terms of some of the coverage of this report, it's a bit of a health warning really, because the data that we have on our workforce isn't complete. In particular for the numbers of disabled staff or who are registered disabled, we are 49% of the workforce have not identified whether they are disabled or not. So when we're looking at some of the data in the report, and particularly the cover report, please have that in mind. And likewise, where we look at ethnicity, there's around 10% of our workforce who haven't identified any ethnicity, so it's unreported. So when we look at some of this data, that needs to be borne in mind as well. We have had previous, in the previous workforce reports, had similar challenges where we have worked with the workforce and done comms messages to try to increase those numbers. We clearly need to do something more, because where we've got sort of large gaps in our workforce intelligence, we need to look at other reasons and other ways that we can actually get that information registered on our system. But I think more fundamentally is to try and understand why members of the workforce don't feel that they should and could actually provide us with that data. So I think that's a piece of work that the HR service will actually be undertaking over the coming months. With that in mind, the work of this obviously provides a lot of rich data. This is then shared with the Council's Equality Group, and through the Equality Group also we have provided more in-depth analysis, and we will be doing so with each departmental management team. And from that there will be a report and an action plan which identifies a number of the key works that we need to be concentrating on. We have done some work on this already, and unsurprisingly one area that we're looking at is the numbers of leavers within the first year of employment, and particularly in terms of the numbers of BAME leavers in the first year of employment. We're doing further analysis on that. And what we've implemented since the last workforce report on that is a new system where we've got touch-in periods for new employees, and after month 1, month 4 and month 8 of their employment with the council, we are sending each of those new staff an employee questionnaire to try to really understand what the induction and what the arrangements have been in that first year of employment, to get a better feel and an understanding. So if there are any problems or concerns that the members of staff have got that they haven't raised with their managers, then we've got the opportunity to try and address that. So that is one method which we're looking at and we have implemented. Clearly there needs to be some further analysis done on this, and there's a large part of the data where we have leavers, and it's defined as leaving for personal reasons. We're actually doing a lot more work on that as well to try and identify that in the exit questionnaires about what that actually means, because it doesn't give a full overview of what the actual reason for leaving was. Given the action planning for this, through previous discussions with the chair and vice chair of this committee, what we will be doing is actually sharing the action plan with future employment committees and progress updates of how we're doing against that action plan. So that will be implemented. It might not be for the employment committee that's due to be held in February, but it will certainly be the one after that. Okay. Given the level of detail in the report, I am happy to answer any questions. And equally, as I said earlier on, if there is anything I can't respond to immediately, I will do so following the meeting. Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Gilby.
Probably no great surprise, Chair, thank you. The Assistant Director rightly picks up on the fact that lack of declaration
is an ongoing problem, but it is quite clearly not a new problem. So therefore, I would like to pick up on the summary table in 5.5 of the summary report, specifically with regards to two metrics. Number one, top 5% of earners from an ethnic minority and top 5% of earners that are disabled. This metric is at its lowest for the years recorded in this table, and I was wondering if there might be some sort of discernible reason why we've strayed into that negative territory. Thank you.
Thank you. For both of those, actually, the numbers for the disabled one is a cause of concern, because again, it's such a high number of our workforce that have that undefined. It's just an unreliable data. So I can't answer the question on that until we've actually got a better number or a percentage of the disabled numbers of our workforce identified. In terms of the ethnic minority workers, you are right to pick up that there has been a reduction in this year. The numbers we're talking about are quite low. So given the top 5% of earners is talking about 60 members of staff, then we're looking at about 3 members of staff that have differed since the highest outturn, and that in 2021. It's an area that we'll continue to keep under review. And it's an area that, again, through the work that we're doing for the action planning, is that we can report regularly back to Employment Committee of the progress against that.
Councillor Watts, I can see you've got your hand up.
I am. Thank you. Firstly, I just wanted to say to Paul that the Leavers report is a really good idea, because nobody tells the truth than somebody who's leaving the job. So that's actually a really good idea. Is there any chance that we could do some sort of like, oh, for goodness sake, I'm having trouble with words today, a secret survey of the employers during the year, so that they could do it, you know, what is the word I'm looking for? Seriously, I've not had enough coffee today.
Anonymously.
Anonymously. Thank you very much. Yeah, is there a way that they could do an anonymous survey during the year so that we can get more of the details about disabilities? Because I know a lot of people, I mean, particularly if it's something like chronic illness that doesn't show on the outside, they don't want to talk about it. You know, is there a window for them?
We do a staff survey. The last one was done back in 2022, and that is an anonymous survey, but it doesn't actually capture some of the information that we've got here in terms of the disability numbers. So it's something that through future ones we could do that, but the record is actually recorded against the individual. So we wouldn't be able to identify, we would get rough numbers potentially from that survey, but then we wouldn't be able to register it against the individual as we would be required on this. So I think the case of action is really to try to understand why people do not feel able to fulfil this part of the information on the system. And if there are any underlying causes of that, we need to understand that as that being the issue. Because it's given the communications that we've had with staff over the last 2-3 years to encourage numbers to actually be increased to be filling this data, it's only quite small improvements there. So certainly that is the case for the disability. I think over the last 3 years we've only had an improvement of around about 4% for that. In terms of the ethnicity data, what we're finding now is that whilst the information is requested as part of the recruitment application process, even through that, we are getting a numbers of applicants who are not filling that data in. So again, we need to try to understand that and to see if we can actually deal with that at source, because certainly for those people coming newly into the council, we would want to try and obtain all this information at first hand so we can increase these numbers.
Is there a, I mean, if they're just getting the job, it might be that they don't want to fill that out, that information out, because it might affect how their job works, perhaps. So the anonymous survey that you have, would it be all right to take a look at it? Maybe I can suggest something. I don't know.
I'm happy.
See if I can.
I'm happy to share the survey with you, but again, it's the recording of the information post survey, because we are registering that against the employees and to have that employee data. So we are really trying to focus on trying to understand why people do not feel that they want to provide this information. I would be really particularly concerned for any prospective applicant who felt that they couldn't provide that information to ourselves, because clearly we wouldn't be discriminating against any groups of individuals. So if there is any suggestion or any identification of that, then that's something that we would need to deal with at source.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Councillor Allen?
A quick query. So 67 and 68 both deal with the top 5%. Do you said there was, for example, in the disabled, there was 49% of the council workforce. It's not 49% of the top 5%, is it? It's just 49% of the overall council workforce. Do we know if there is if the level of declaration is worse or better in the top 5%?
I don't know the answer to that, Councillor Allen. No, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head.
You might be able to work that out, because you know who the top 5% are, and you know which ones have declared.
Yeah, but we would want to get the more rich data, the data accurate in the first place, and I think that's the source of the issue.
Any further questions? Councillor Gilby?
Chair, for public reassurance, I would like two aspects of the report explained. Number one, it's always concerning, of course, to hear talk of dismissal for ill health. I think for public reassurance, it would be nice to get a summary of how that process actually works. Second of all, the Assistant Director touched on how future action plans will be, or should I say, action plans will ideally be included in future reports. It'd be good to have a summary version of the process from turning this report into those action plans and how it involves all levels of the council. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll respond to that first. That last question first. The Equality Group is a cross-working group of staff across the organisation, from executive directors through to assistant directors and other members of staff across the workforce. The actions and discussions from the Equality Group then gets fed back to the corporate management team and also through to each departmental management team. For particular issues, ones such as this, also we would actually do managers forum sessions to provide breakdown and identification of where the actions are actually leading to. So what we would do at the a subsequent employment committee is actually provide a breakdown of the actions, where they're going and progress being made against each one of those actions. Within the Equality Group also, for reassurance, we have got trade union representation as well. So we've got reasonably good coverage across the organisation for that. As far as the dismissals are concerned for ill health, I think for the committee, the responsibilities include the adoption of HR policies. Those HR policies would actually incorporate the procedures that we would work through for any cases of dismissal, whether that is through ill health or otherwise. And the particular question in terms of ill health capability question is that if we are in a stage where we would have to dismiss a member of the workforce for ill health capability, there would have been quite a long process and stages of a process that we work through, which would include supporting the individual, actively looking for reasonable redeployment opportunities, and a dismissal for ill health capability would be a last resort. There may well also be the opportunity to give consideration to an ill health retirement, which would include immediate access to pension. The ill health retirement regulations for the local government pension scheme are quite strict, so it would identify someone was actually permanently unfit to be working for either over 3 years, which they could be part pension, or for a longer period of time where pension would be payable for the rest of that individual's life. So there is a thorough process. It's the process is led by the policies and procedures that have formally been agreed at Employment Committee, And for reassurance, for ill health capability cases where there has been a dismissal, certainly from living memory, we've not ever had an appeal against the dismissal, and I think that's quite telling that we've actually managed the process effectively.
Thank you. Councillor Watts, you've got your hand up.
Yes. It's more of an observation, but I think people not putting the info initially on the application is more a reflection of previous jobs rather than a reflection of the council as an employer. That's purely from personal circumstance, and the people I know that suffer long-term illnesses, they generally tend to not put it on. So I didn't want it to sound like this was a reflection of the council. Thank you.
Thank you for confirming that. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Gilby?
Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence. The last two questions, I quote from the report, and I suspect this might have been what was picked up in the local joint committee. I quote, "But we have an even higher proportion of leavers, 18.2%, from an ethnic minority background, particularly those from an Asian or black descent. This has been a trend over the last 5 years. This is a matter of concern and needs further analysis." Quite clearly, the question must be, when will this be reported? When will the conclusions be drawn? Oh, I apologise.
Yes, as confirmed earlier, that will be probably too early for the February Employment Committee, but it will certainly be for the one after.
I give way to Councillor Allen. Thank you for the clarification. Well, that just then leads me on to my next question, which is that obviously ensuring the council is representative of the whole community must be a primary goal. One thing that I wanted to query is when we talk about ethnic minority representation, we can look at a percentage across the whole council, but that might not give the whole picture. It might be a particular concentration in certain sectors of the council. I was wondering if, for some reassurance, I just want if you could explain how that data is actually tabulated and recorded and how we try and use that to inform our thinking. Thank you.
Yes, that's the data that's broken down into each departmental management report. So that would be identification of where the numbers of staff and their ethnic origin in each particular department. So what we will be getting from that is an action plan from each department, then which would also then be pulled together for the full council-wide action plan. So it would be covered, and you're right, there could be a particular concentration of any particular group in a particular area. So but the report does give the overall council-wide, but for reassurance for the committee, there's an awful lot more work that goes behind the scenes of this, which is led by the management teams in each department.
Any further questions online or in the room? No, great. So I will then move the officer recommendation to publish the workforce monitoring report. Please, can I have a seconder for that?
Councillor Gilby, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. So can we please vote on that recommendation? Thank you, members of the committee, for attending this evening. I now declare the meeting closed.